A confession this morning. I'm pretty terrible at taking Sabbath, at least as a regular practice. Vacations, yes, and again, thank you for those of you that made it possible for us to be away. You all know how fiercely I guard our day off, our Monday, as a day away from Harvard-Epworth. But Sabbath, a day set apart for no work, a day set apart to devote to God. No chores, no catching up on those things I didn't get done the other 6 days, no errands. Yeah, not so much. And from today's reading, it seems I'm not the only person in that predicament. 2,500 years ago, Isaiah was saying the same thing to the religious leaders of that day. The 24 hours of Sabbath, sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, Shabbat, is one of the hallmarks of observant Judaism. But Isaiah scolds them for using that time, quote, to serve your interest and pursue your affairs. Ouch. And then Isaiah ups the ante, right? Sabbath isn't just about having that rest time. It's time to undo oppression itself, to feed the hungry, to welcome the homeless, to make justice possible. And I'm even more convicted in my failure to keep Sabbath. Before I know it, my spirit gets all bent over. And then these words from Isaiah. His urging to call the Sabbath a delight. That phrase caught me in my tracks. It's not about engaging the Sabbath as a rule or a duty, though in some ways it's both those things. But engaging Sabbath as a joy, as a delight, not about just obeying God, but taking delight in God. And as soon as I start to think of the Sabbath as a delight, I can feel my spirit straightening up, my physical shoulders go back, and I find myself taking a deep breath. I'm literally inspired. The Spirit, the breath comes into me. It's kind of the difference between I have to and I get to. As in, I have to weed the garden and I get to weed the garden. The second has a lot more possibilities in it.
For the artwork on the front of the bulletin this week, I chose a painting by Marc Chagall. It's called The Blue Violinist. But I've read more than one commentator say it really should be entitled Shabbat, Sabbath. Because it's not just a blue person playing a violin, it's a person living fully into the spirit of Sabbath. It exudes a spirit of rest, of music, of joy, of delight at the gift from God that is Sabbath. You know who else engaged the Sabbath as a delight? Jesus. It's very easy to think of Jesus as always serious and somber and solemn and super holy while going about the business of doing God's work. And yet the Gospels show him telling jokes and experiencing joy and enjoying food and wine with friends at meals, taking delight. And you know what else delighted Jesus? Healing people who were broken. As much as I love the movie Jesus Christ Superstar, I've been infected by one scene where people are coming to him for healing, and he is overwhelmed and yells at them. It's just like, oh, all this healing is too much. But you never see that in the Gospels. healing people who were broken, who were tortured or lonely, who were bent over somehow. Reimagine the scene from this morning in the gospel. As Jesus is teaching in the synagogue, a woman whose illness has bent her over for 18 years comes in. And most people probably looked away from her, seeing her only as, oh, that bent over woman. I want you to see in your mind's eye as Jesus calls her and how he bends down to her to look her in the eye, to fully acknowledge her as a daughter of Sarah and Abraham, as a child of God. And then he pronounces, "Woman, you are free from your infirmity." He lays his hands on her and she straightens up, praising God. I don't hear any somber there. I imagine the smile on Jesus' face. I imagine the smile on her face. I imagine the delight at being made whole as the healing of a sickness caused by a spirit, as Luke puts it, had her bent over for so long. Can you imagine the surprise and the delight in the congregation? And can you imagine the fog rolling in from the leadership of the synagogue? As Jesus and this woman are celebrating wholeness and delight, the words at the head of the synagogue break down upon them. There are 6 other days to heal during the week. Today is a Sabbath. You could have come on another day. There is someone who's forgotten the words of Isaiah, who has forgotten that Sabbath is a delight, a gift, who's gotten lost in the rules and the duty. And Jesus lets him have it. The scripture tells us that everyone else in the synagogue keeps on rejoicing.
So a quick aside here. One of the things we as a congregation are doing is always learning more about being truly inclusive and welcoming, part of which is embracing disability, dignity, and pride. And so I want to just note that in this biblical scene, the woman's physical bent over is the result of a spirit illness from which Jesus frees her. But Jesus is not about making everyone look and move exactly the same. So I want to share with you the words of Nadia Boltz-Weber, a Lutheran pastor. She writes, "Let's remember that God saves you in your body, not from your body. Your body is in the same form and substance as that which God chose to put on and walk among us as Jesus. Your body is holy and beautiful to God. Your young, old, fat, cis, queer, disabled, strong body. For after all, it's the human body in which God placed God's image, the imago Dei." I don't want us to forget that.
And so Jesus takes a Sabbath delight, a holy delight, in this woman who comes into the synagogue. He sees her, really sees her. And he names her as God's beloved, not that bent over one, marginalized on the side. His healing of her spirit reconnects her, puts her back into relationship with her faith, her people, to creation, to God. That is what healing is about, and that's what his Sabbath delight is all about.
Now, I'm sure there were times when Jesus was serious and somber. Life is complicated. But no one, not even Jesus, can live that way all the time and be whole. That's some of why I know he found the Sabbath to be a delight and also experienced healing as a delight, and the presence of children as delight, and sharing meals with all kinds of unusual people as delight, and his connection to God as delight, and those delights sustained him through all the hard work of his ministry, the hypocritical religious leaders, the clueless disciples, the endless days of walking, the grief over the hardness of people's hearts.
Beloved, we all need delight in our lives. There is so much bad news bearing down upon us from our nation, from our world, in our own lives, and it's constantly threatening. The weight of it is constantly threatening to bend us down all the time. For us to stay whole, we need to find delight just as Jesus did. August's poem this morning celebrated the determination of the people of Orlando, Florida, to renew the colors, the rainbow colors, to a crosswalk outside the Pulse nightclub. It was serious work in the midst of serious oppression, and it was a delight. You should look at the photographs, the befores and afters in the news.
And then there's all the places that we often find delight. The beauty and wonder of the natural world, the bright eyes, the voices of children, in music, in good food, in all those little blessings of life that if we don't pay attention to them, just slip away. When we do pay attention, delight.
It's being in faithful community together here on a Sunday morning and the days we work together. The hugging, the nodding, the singing, the eating, the praying together. It's a delight.
And being able to help people in need. This morning we heard about the difference that our offerings are making for families in suburbs north of where we are. We've heard the difference of what it means to write letters to people, telling them that we're glad that they're here, and they've written letters back to us. Now, the process of putting that all together, that was work. Going out and buying those gift cards and getting them to where they need to go, that was work. And it was also delight to be able to make even a little bit of difference in a really hard time. Delight.
Next Monday is Labor Day. It's the last holiday of the summer, and it can be kind of a Sabbath delight. Time to share with family and friends, to enjoy summer before fall's chill is in the air. It's also a day to remember our history of labor in this country, but I'll do that on another Sunday.
That's right.
Our plans for Labor Day evening in our family is to share dinner with our family and our friends. That'll be great. But during the day, we're going to enjoy a different delight. And we want to invite you to be a part of it. We are going to participate again in the Prayers for Liberty walk on Labor Day. We'll join other faith leaders and laity in walking from Lexington to Boston. It's retracing backwards Paul Revere's ride. And when we say backwards, I got to share this. I was talking with my mom and describing the walk and saying, we're walking backwards, Paul Revere's walk. And she's like, that does not sound safe.
We're going to walk forwards.
I have a little rearview mirror to keep, no. We're going to be walking the route backwards, retracing Paul Revere's ride, to call attention to the need to protect our democracy and our common commitments to justice and to the poor.
We did this back in May, the first one of these walks, with about 300 leaders from various faiths. It was a long walk. That one started very early in the morning, before dawn, in Lexington. And it was a total delight to spend that day walking and talking and sharing stories and teaching each other songs and dances from our various traditions. It was a delight. This walk is motivated by serious needs and concerns about our democracy and about the state of the poor in this country. And it's a delight to share that walk with other people of faith from all different kinds of traditions. The first one was for clergy to journey, and this time it's for clergy and laity both. And there's information about that in our entryway.
So if you have time on Labor Day, and if you have a passion for the hungry, the homeless, the disenfranchised, the marginalized, the immigrants, the poor, come join us to walk or to pray at the gathering spots along the way. We'll stop in Arlington, we'll stop here in Cambridge, and we'll stop again in Boston to pray together. There's information about the Prayers for Liberty walk in the entryway and in your bulletin.
And you don't have to walk the whole piece, just part if you wish. And so, friends, we invite you in these last days of summer to think about where you find Sabbath, and maybe even more importantly, where you find delight. Delight in God and the life that God gives us. How is it that you remember God's got this, even though we don't understand how most of the time? God's got this. We each have our work to do, our part to play, but it is not all up to us and our fierce industriousness. The essential message of Sabbath is that God's got this.
Can we say that together? God's got this. One more time. Can we shout it together? God's got this.
We'll talk more about Sabbath in our sermon next Sunday, but in the meantime, look for this in your own lives. And even in the pain, even as you share that pain in community, remember, God's got this, God's got you, God's got us, and God is love. Amen.